Hello, my lovely Marshall blenders. How are you? How are you? Let's talk about hair. Let's talk about hair. Let's talk about hair. Hey, welcome to my hair talk show. This is Bramantha. She has had a makeover. I gave her some highlights. She's the one that I used for the practical exam, state board practical exam, which I passed, guys. I'm official. I'm certified. And this is Bramantha. I gave her some braids. If they are using this, it is a perm. If they're not using that, it's not a perm. It's called a chemical relaxer. Chemical relaxer. So let me show you my favorite chemical relaxer. Now, you guys know I'm kind of joking around. For 25 years, I used to call chemical relaxers perms, simply because that's how we understood it here. You know, you go to even the Dominican, you get un relaxer, you get un perm, you know? So they would use it the same. A perm, a relaxer is considered essentially the same in a lot of places. But we do want to be specific, especially if you're a blender. If you're a Marshall blender, we want to use the proper terminology. We want to use the right wording. So a perm, it's called a permanent wave, right? A permanent curl. And even when you have natural hair and you curl your natural coil and temporarily set it, with this, we call it a perm rod set. So just remember that a perm is for the curl, okay? I'm not being like all like, hey, let's be perfect, because I'm not perfect. But what I am saying is, let's use proper terminology if we can, and still respecting what is commonly used. So like if I go to a place or I'm working in a salon where a chemical relaxer is called a perm, I'm not gonna correct the person and be like, listen, you don't need to be calling that, no, blah, blah, blah. But I will give them a little conversation and a little talk. And I do notice I have that gray hair that's being recalcitrant, trying to get too much attention. It's okay. I love my gray hair. But guys, so my favorite chemical relaxer to use is from Avalon. And it's Affirm. I use the Affirm. And this one you do actually have to apply the applicator to the cream. And then other common ones are like the TCB relaxer or the Motions relaxer. These are two that I've used forever. I no longer use them because I stick to the Avalon. Is there a difference between the relaxers that you're able to get at your local spot and the ones that the professionals use? I can tell you definitely there is a difference. The caveat to that is that for decades, I've seen people, like even in my own family, that use the TCB, which is like a $2.99 large container, good size container. You can get maybe like one solid relaxer and like 2 touch-ups from it, So, and the hair was perfectly fine. So it also has to deal with how you apply the relaxer. So that was what I wanted to say. Let me tell you something. So we're going to start off with the actual basics. Hair has more than 3, but 3 basic layers, right? Has the cuticle, which is what surrounds the hair. It's the cuticle. We'll call it kind of like the shingles, right? Like on the roof. That's what the cuticle does. And then you have the cortex, which is the following layer, right? It's what composes the majority of what the hair is. It's where a lot of these, what I call like little ladders or little strings are in. It's what makes up the hair. And then you have the medulla, which is essentially just like this long running strand that sticks, that runs from root to end in the hair. You have the cuticle, the cortex, and the medulla. Hair has a pH of 4.5 to 5.5 on the pH balance, right? That is from 0 to 14. It's on the acidic side. Chemicals like relaxer or perm solutions are used to raise the pH from 4.5 or 5.5 to above 7 Okay, so once it's above 7, it becomes alkaline. This action opens the cuticle layer, which remember, the cuticle layer is the first layer, opens the cuticle layer of the hair and allows the solution to reach the cortex layer, which is the second layer of the hair, and then something called restructuring occurs. Inside the hair, there are many chains that together make the fiber that we call hair. So being specific, chemical relaxers, the types of chemical relaxers are ammonium thio, guanidine hydroxide, and these are what are called no-lie relaxers, no-lie relaxers. But then you also have sodium hydroxide relaxers, which those are called lie relaxers, right? They break the disulfide bonds, and then after they're broke, they have to be, the bonds have to kind of be rebonded, right? That's essentially what you want to do when you do a relaxer. This is something that is very important. When you get one of the no-lie relaxers, or you get a, so some people, they get hair smoothing, right? They get like a restructuring of the wave, a jerry curl or a new wave, you know, something like that. Those things are not compatible with relaxers. So what would happen if you were to try to apply a relaxer, do a relaxer touch-up on hair that has had a jerry curl or has had a new wave? That hair would literally just melt off. It would melt off because it would become, the alkali levels are totally different. It just doesn't mix. You know what I mean? So are there people that have done it? There's people who have done it. You know, there are things that you shouldn't do, but there are, that can be done, but shouldn't be done. And that's one of those things. You should not try and apply a relaxer on hair that has been through perming, or has been through new wave, or has been through jerry curl, or has been through an S curl, something like that. You know what I mean? So that's essentially it. Now, if you were to ask me, what are some of the hair care that I like to use after a relaxer, after a chemical relaxer? So, you know, chemical relaxers, you have to rinse it off after a specific amount of time. You rinse it all off the water. You rinse it off the best you can with the water. Once you rinse it off with the water, which, you know, water has a pH balance of 7, so it already starts the neutralization. It already starts the neutralization, but you do need actual chemical neutralizing that occurs. One of my favorite neutralizers to use is Mizani's Formula H. It's a neutralizing and chelating, which is absolutely important. Chelation goes into the hair and pulls out stuff that shouldn't be there. So for me, one of my favorite ones are the Mizani Formula 7. It's a great neutralizer. Another one that I love is from the company of Perm, which is the very same company that I use their relaxer. This one is actually a follow-up treatment. It's called 5-in-1 Reconstructor, but they do actually have their normalizing shampoo from Perm, which I absolutely love. Another shampoo that I like to follow up after I have done the normalizing or the neutralizing is I like to use the Pelor Save Our Strands. This is a bond reconstructing shampoo, so it adds to the strengthening of the hair right after a chemical service. Mizani itself does have really good, like I said, I love their line of neutralizers. They also have a Bond Force follow-up treatment that you can use on the hair after a relaxer. It does that. It also bonds, builds. I think that now that we live in a world where there's a lot of bond building, don't be afraid to use it. Even if all you can afford is the $25 packet of, who is it that makes it? I think it's Cream of Nature. They make a Bondplex type thing, or even the OGX Bondplex line. But you want to use something that will rebuild the bonds, okay? But these are the things that I use regularly. Now, one old school thing that I love to use because it actually does strengthen the hair, it does repair damaged hair, and it does soften the hair. It makes it very soft, gives it a lot of hydration, a lot of moisture, is the old school Queen Helene cholesterol. This one is actually the super cholesterol, the red one. And this one, for me, is one of my favorites. But top of all tops of bond building for me that I love is the Olaplex line. This is the Olaplex number 2. If you want to apply some Olaplex to your relaxer, do it. do it. It will not stop it from working and relaxing the curl or the wave, the natural curl or the natural wave of the hair. It'll work just as well. And then you follow up after you've rinsed. In this case, you would rinse it off, right? And then you would follow up applying the number 2. You could apply the number 2 potentially after you do the neutralizing, I would say, you know. You neutralize and then you apply the number 2 when it's a relaxer. And so after you've done that, the 2 products that I especially am loving now for after chemical services to protect the hair from heat, if you're going to roller set, if you're going to blow it out, after relaxer, I honestly suggest roller setting as opposed to the blowout, even if you're going to pass the flat iron afterwards. But I prefer a roller set after a blowout on long hair. On short hair, it's kind of different, but on long hair, I prefer the roller set just to be safe, you know. But do what you're gonna do. But either ways, these 2 are my favorites for after chemical services and just for blowouts, period also. But this is the Redken Extreme Anti-Snap and the Pelor Save Our Shine. This one really also has bond builders in it, and you can feel it strengthen and tighten the hair. And so for me, those are things that I actually enjoy using when I am working with relaxed hair. The other thing I will tell you is try to get yourself I really do like to use specifically the wet brush. So if you're able to get the wet brush in hand, and this is just one of their type of wet brushes. They have many different styled wet brushes. I would say use that. Also use that because it'll be less breakage, it'll be less tension on newly chemically changed hair. Because once you change the hair chemically, guess what? My mother used to always say, once the hair has been relaxed or it has been permed, it's no longer natural hair, she'd say. So now, because it is, she would call it a synthetic hair, because now you have to be extra careful with it. You know, yes, you have to be careful with natural hair, but once it's gone through the process, you have to be extra careful with it because it's going to snap quicker. So that's how come all of these products that I mentioned to you after the relaxer process, chemical relaxer process, is what I trust, it's what I suggest, it's what I use, and it's what I love. Now I want to do a little bit of fragrance talk with you guys, because I don't know if you know, but I have a fragrance channel. It's called Marshall's Blends Fragrance. And so I'm going to tell you guys 5 fragrances that I think are going to be great for fall and winter. I'm going to start off with Jafra's fragrance, JF9 Gold. It is a wonderful, spicy fragrance. I think that it behaves so well in the fall, and I haven't experienced it in winter, but in cool nights it behaves. So I'm assuming it's going to be just as good. Another one that I love is Nuit d'Essai, Pulse of the Night. This one is a wonderful incensey, spicy, but it also has a bit of like it has vanilla. So it's a nice vanillic fragrance. The third one I'm going to mention is Zaharoff's Signature Rosé. This is a rose incense fragrance that I absolutely love. I love wearing it. I love smelling it. And recently I paired it with the other one I'm going to mention, which is Darej. Now, the interesting thing is Darej has 2, right? It has the Pour Femme and the For Men. The Pour Femme is a really delicious gourmand, and it goes really well when you blend with these. Even though it does say Pour Femme, both men and women can wear it. It is a very unisex fragrance, and that's something I've been able to find out about Middle Eastern fragrances, that they kind of do service or are able to be worn by both men and women. And the last one I'm going to mention comes from the house of City Rhythm, and this one is called the Red Line. 2,654. That's the miles between Miami and San Diego, because this one from this fragrance house, City Rhythm, is actually a uniting of 2 fragrances. The 2 fragrances that were united is Miami and San Diego. This company actually makes a fragrance for a city of each state of the United States, and so this one merged. San Diego and Miami. So you do get lime, you do get juniper, you do get coconut, but you also get some nice driftwood. So that's and vanilla. That's kind of what gives it this versatility. You're able to wear it in summer, you're able to wear it in winter. It has something for each season. And yes, I wore it in summer. Yes, I've been wearing it during the time that we've been getting some fall weather, and I was able to notice that it just develops differently, it macerates differently. In the summer you get more of lime and coconut, and more recently I've been getting a lot more of the vanilla and the woods. So that lets me know for a fact that definitely winter it's going to be working and smelling really good. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm gonna try and edit it so that it's not so long. But just to recap, chemical relaxer and perms are two different things. Chemical relaxers are creams that will break down the natural curl or wave of the hair. Okay, those are chemical relaxers. And a perm actually does the opposite. It reconstructs the hair from the inside that is straight to give it a curl. So it won't be it's not a natural curl, it is a chemically produced curl to straight hair. So what's a perm? No, a perm is not a relaxer. Goodbye, my lovely Marshall blenders. I'll see and we'll talk about hair care soon. Bye-bye.